Hello viewers, we're coming to you live from our main studio in Bakau, The Gambia. This is N24 News Hour and I'm your presenter, Mudiwangam. Coming up in the next minutes, fish scarcity continues to be a major problem in urban Gambia as fishmongers and fishermen lament. Gambia's first draft policy validated at the Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara Conference Center. In sports, Arsenal got knocked out of the Women's Champions League after losing 3-1 on aggregate. On the international front, Sri Lanka protest at President Rajapaksa's home turns violent. These and more to feature in our today's bulletin. Stay tuned. The roles of ambulances cannot be overemphasized, and the Ministry of Health received 25 ambulances from the UNOPS. These ambulances are meant to answer to some of the problems of patients traveling. Our reporter Alimatu Juf tells us more in this report.
The role of ambulance in our society is to answer to the call for emergency, whereby a patient can be checked in the ambulance before reaching the hospital. Ambulance provide easy access to health services, particularly out of hours. The Ministry of Health received the remaining 25 community ambulances, which is given by the UNOPS, in order to ease the burden of transportation. The Minister of Health, Alamin Samate, said the ambulances will stay in the communities and there will be a unique number 116 and it requires no credit.
That people in the community and the community health officials, the village health workers will have those numbers and people could call when they have an emergency, a toll-free number that they are going to use and no one is going to pay, even if they do not have any credit on their phones. And this ambulance will go all the way to their home to pick the pregnant woman in labor or the very sick person all the way to a health facility. I think it has never happened in the history of this country. So this is history in the making, and this has not happened in many countries that I know of in the whole of Africa. This is the first time in the history of many countries for such a thing to happen, and I think it's remarkable.
Mr. Lamin Damfar is the permanent secretary too of the Ministry of Health.
This was done by UNOPS, but was 100% financed by government of the Gambia. It's not financed by any donor, but the government of the Gambia resources, that was what was used to finance the 80 ambulances for the various communities of the Gambia. These ambulances are procured mainly to ease the burden of referral, especially communities that are far from the facilities, and they are also hard to reach communities.
Abdullah Jammeh is the project manager of UNOPS.
The final phase of 4 handovers that we've done in the past. We've already handed over 55 ambulances in the past from late last year. And today we're here to witness the handover of the final batch of ambulances to the Ministry of Health. We as a UN agency, we are very delighted to support the government of the Gambia. And to clarify, the government of the Gambia provided financing for this procurement. We, as a United Nations procurement agency, facilitated the procurement through our systems and our networks around the world. I want to thank the ministry, through the government of the Gambia, for trusting us with this project, and also to thank SafeHour for always being available to process these ambulances when they arrive in the country, and to everyone involved in this project since the beginning. We are immensely delighted to be part of this great initiative for the government of the Gambia. And on that note, we want to thank everybody for their presence here and wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you very much.
The community ambulances are 80, which is 4x4 reverse for the past 2 years of the state of COVID-19 ambulance, which were 10. Leads the total number of new ambulances in the Gambia to 90. For N24 News, I am Alimatu Juf.
November 2021 is a date many political parties would look back to and say they signed the Code of Conduct. March 2022 would be another one. This is a report gathered for us during the signing of the Code of Conduct.
I reiterate that the task before us is huge, and as a guiding principle of this policy, we are calling for partnership and collaboration in pushing research interests in the Gambia. Please be committed to seeing this policy cater for all research matters, research administration, research promotion, and research dissemination in this country. On behalf of the Honorable Minister Badr Diouf, I have the singular honor to declare this workshop officially open.
The Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology validated its 2022 to 2031 draft research policy at the South Dauda Kairaba Conference Center in Bijilo. This draft policy is the first ever draft national research policy of the Gambia by Gambian researchers. This policy, which is aligned to and domesticate the relevant provisions of the UN Agenda 2030 and the African Union Agenda 2063. This policy focuses on key issues in relation to the development of the first national research policy of the Gambia, which includes research policy taken onto account to global and national blueprint. James Gomez is the Director of Research.
On the rules and regulations of research in the country. A study tour was also conducted as a major event. Team of staff from the Ministry of Higher Education and the University of the Gambia conducted a study tour to Ghana. This study tour, research policy formulation process were observed, during which a roadmap after the study tour, a roadmap was presented, validation, we validated it, and there was an engagement on the next step to developing a robust research governance framework after the study tour.
The role of research in development cannot be overemphasized. Research plays a fundamental role in the socio-economic and scientific development of a society. It contributes significantly to the improvement of agricultural productivity and food security, health, education, and the livelihood of people, as evident in the technological and industrial development that have taken place in recent years. The era of using the scientific method to know facts based on research registered unprecedented advances in science and technology in the fields of medicine, education, ICT, and the other social science, which has helped in the development of nations. For N24 News Hour, I am Pa from Korea.
Fish is part of the many important items on a human diet, but getting it from the markets lately is becoming an issue due to several reasons. The fishermen and fishmongers at the Tanje Riverside take us through in this report as to what they think is the cause of the fish scarcity. Our reporter Maimuna Dari tells us more in this report.
Fish have formed an important item of human diet, and nearly all freshwater fishes and marine are edible and have been an important source of protein, fats, and vitamin A and D. Fish can be said as one of the primary sources of food for Gambians. Tanje fishermen and fishmongers are complaining bitterly about the scarcity of fish in the Gambia. Karafasane is one of the fishmongers in Tanje and said fish is expensive because there aren't many Gambian fishermen in the Gambian waters. She claimed there are foreign vessels in the sea and they complain of fuel.
Gambien yi dañu fi amé gal bariwut fi de sénégalais ci ñoo fi amé té xam nga ñom tamit dañ dé wone damay jënd gasoil dama jëndon essence jëm jënd gasoil wara dem balé fu sori su ñëwé xam nga du jën bi du yomba da fay sér su la ko jaayé té jën mom fu nekk ni xana mu em suñu borom jéjay waye jën ñu bari ñoko dé jënd bala mo éga ci kin bi man suma ko jëndé kenen jënd ko ci man war ko jaay kenen jënd ko ci kenen tamit war ko jaay bala mo éga ci kin bi da fay sér.
Babukar also speaking on why fishes are expensive in the country due to the presence of big boats.
Suñ sañoon mooy loolu léegi bato yi dañ fay génn ñu mën a firi because mooy loolu ñun géej gi leen fi am gannaaw yàlla géej bi leen fi am géej bi leen yàlla wërsëgal pour ñu liggéey si nguur gi ni ñu mën a jàppale mooy foog mu génn fi bato yi gaal yi mën na liggéey normal because gis nga gaal yi mag yëpp daw neen dem Sénégal boo waxee ñu def fii boo sànnee sa mbaal bato yi dañoo yaxal sa mbaal yi xam nga loolu dafa métti si réew yaa gis mbay mi doxut géej gi leen am mooy loolu te géej gi léegi doxut kon bu yàggee nan la ñuy def dañuy toog dund gaa yi gën a seer affaire yaa ngi gën a xaat.
Ndeye Anta Njai, a dry fish seller in Tanjay, also says that the fish are expensive and that of fuel, and sometimes the fishermen wouldn't even catch any fish.
Jën yi moom seer na prix bi yokk na waaye yokk bi moom jamono bi la mënta bañ a yokku parce que mool itam dañuy sonn dañuy dem géej fanaan fa ñëw duñu am dara essence bi seer na looloo tax jën yi yokku boo seetee ni àddina bi ni mu meloon melatu ko léegi li nga daan jëndee saaku ceeb jëndeetoo ko li nga daan jëndee potu suukar jëndeetoo ko ñoom itam bu ñëwee ñu jaay seen jën bi mu yomb ñoom itam duñu mën a jënd loolu moo ko waral jamono bee seer waaw.
They also urge the government to create facilities to enable them to fish in their waters without facing any hindrance with the big boats owned by other countries. Fish scarcity and expenses continue to be talking points in the Gambia, and the government seemingly quiet about it. Reporting for N24 News Hour, I am Maimuna Dari.
In sports, Arsenal were knocked out of the Women's Champions League at the quarter-final stage after being beaten 3-1 on aggregate by Wolfsburg to end British interest in the competition. The Londoners had salvaged a 1-1 draw late in the first leg at the Emirates last week, but were undone by goals in each half from the Frauen Bundesliga leaders. Former gunner Jill Roord scored the opener after just 9 minutes, hooking in from close range after the visitors failed to clear a corner. The home side, playing at the men's team's Volkswagen Arena, thought they had netted again when Tabia stroked in, but after a long check by VAR, it was ruled out for offside. And away from that latest happening in sports, let's now look at the latest of the internationals. Several towns in Kenya have been hit by a major fuel shortage. The northwestern and western parts of the country are among the hardest hit regions. There are also reports that some petrol stations in the capital, Nairobi, are turning away motorists after running out of fuel. Sources say the crisis may have been triggered by reduced imports by big oil marketing companies who are wary that they may not be promptly compensated for the government-subsidized prices they charge consumers. But the country's energy regulator has attributed shortages to logistical challenges and says it is engaging oil marketing firms to resolve the crisis. The government usually compensates oil dealers so they can offer a low price, but they say that they have not been paid for the past 4 months. Sri Lankan police imposed curfew and fired tear gas at demonstrators protesting dire food, fuel and power shortages outside the president's house. More in this report.
Agitated protesters stormed through barricades and were accused of setting fire to a bus on Thursday night. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa blamed the events on extremist elements. Sri Lanka is in the midst of a foreign exchange crisis that has crippled its economy. Faced with 13-hour power cuts, a lack of fuel, essential food items, and medicines, public anger has reached a new high. The protests outside the president's house began peacefully, but participants say things turned violent after police fired tear gas, water cannons, and also beat people present. On Friday morning, police arrested 45 people, although no charges have been made against them yet. The demonstrations marked a massive turnaround in popularity for Mr. Rajapaksa, who swept into power with a majority win in 2019, promising stability and a strong hand to rule the country. News reports that the president and his ministers are exempt from the power cuts, along with opulent displays of wealth by family members, have only increased anger. The government has been blaming the crisis on the pandemic's impact on tourism, one of the island nation's main source of foreign revenue, along with a series of attacks on churches on Easter Sunday 2019, which led to a marked drop in tourists. Sri Lanka no longer has enough dollars to buy essential items like fuel to power vehicle or even generate power. As a result, the country's electricity board has been imposing power cuts that have grown longer and longer in duration. On Thursday, power was switched off for 13 hours, with 16-hour cuts expected in the coming days. This has disrupted businesses, education, and day-to-day life for millions. Long lines have been reported outside fuel stations, while people have also had to queue up for hours in the heat to buy items like cooking gas cylinders, with sometimes tragic results. 5 elderly people have died after collapsing in queues over the last few weeks. Shortage in food items and essential medicines are also being reported from across the country.
Viewers, that's all the time we have in today's bulletin, but keep connected to your favorite N24RTV.